Welcome back. Aubrey Cohen joins us again. Welcome back, Aubrey.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, Aubrey's a Seattle PI resident real estate reporter at seattlepi.com. And so, Aubrey, you have an article coming out here, kind of a sneak peek.
That's right. You get the word first.
That's right. We're breaking news article. I read it. It's a very interesting article about how investors are kind of getting back into the marketplace.
Not only getting back, but you have some people who are deciding to sort of jump in for the first time. You know, people who've got some money in investments. You know, the stock market's still a little shaky. Savings and CDs, they're not doing anything. And so they see that prices are low, interest rates are low, and they think this might be a good thing to do now. All of a sudden, to buy a house or a condo and rent it out, become a landlord.
You brought up an interesting point that people with money in savings accounts in a bank are actually losing money because of inflation.
Yeah, I mean, interest rates, if you have something that's paying you interest at all, and a lot of banks aren't now, the interest rates are lower than the level of inflation, though actually inflation's pretty low too, but you're certainly not
except
making
on gas
money.
And food and things you need.
Yeah, well, gas seems to bounce around, but it's back up again, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. So when people start considering buying real estate, you actually reported that there's a local seminar where they got 200 people coming to a seminar about buying investment real estate. So that would start showing me that there's interest.
There certainly is, and it's not just people showing up at seminars. I talked to one guy. He'd been looking for 6 months trying to buy a house to rent out, and everything that was in his price range and the neighborhoods he wanted to be, he got outbid. He ended up buying a house for $11,000 over asking price. Looking at the condo market, I talked to this woman, an agent, and she told a couple of different stories about you go and look at a condo, and the next day there are 3 full price offers. So there's competition out there for this.
And this isn't necessarily slumlord stuff. I mean, these are nicer areas, nicer homes. You had actually mentioned that it's a demand for single-family homes or condos with rents of even $2,000 or more, which is not cheap. That's not cheap rent.
Well, and that's on the other side of the equation in terms of, I was talking to a property manager who said that they don't have enough of those to rent out. There's a lot of renters out there. That's one of the reasons it might be a good time to buy a house like this. He said, nice rental houses, these houses, $2,000 a month. He doesn't have enough. He has renters to spare.
Renters lined up and no houses to rent.
Yeah, in fact, I think it's probably, you mentioned being a slumlord. I think those houses that are not quite as nice, those are the ones that are sitting around and in the rental market and in the for sale market.
Where are these renters coming from?
Well, Seattle is still hiring people and hiring more people. The economy started picking up. We still have a lot of jobs. We're bringing people in, particularly in the tech and biotech and those areas that we're strong in. And those people, it used to be, you'd come in and maybe you'd buy a house right away, and you knew that if it didn't turn out to be the house you wanted or the neighborhood you wanted, you could sell it in a year and buy something else. Now people are a little spooked about buying. Plus, they also know that if they buy and try to sell in a year, they're probably going to take a bit of a loss. So they're much more interested in renting when they first get here, and maybe renting even long term, but certainly renting until they decide where they want to buy a house.
And I mean, that just seems like such a normal thing to do. If it wasn't for the market from 5 years ago, that, maybe I'll go rent for a little while and determine a neighborhood or a type of house that I want. So it seems, again, I like it. It's a bit of a return to normalcy. What about the people, you talk to these people who are renting $2,000 to $3,000. They're coming here, they're considering, or they're finding jobs, and people who buy houses to rent to them are typically, they're making money on a monthly basis, right? I mean, you're not just hoping and praying the house goes up. This is what I call a prudent investment, because it actually makes sense on a monthly basis.
You make a good point. And in some ways, it's the reverse of what we had a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago, people would buy a house and they'd lose money on the monthly rent, but they knew they could turn around and sell it relatively quickly for a profit because the prices are going up. Nowadays, if you buy a house, you have to be prepared to hold on to it because you're not going to sell it quickly for a profit. However, people are finding that they can cash flow right away. They can charge more in rent than their mortgage payment. Another thing I forgot to mention in terms of who's renting these houses, you've got people who got into some trouble in the past couple of years. Maybe they lost a house, maybe they had a short sale, their credit took a hit, and they can't qualify to buy a home, yet they have a good job and they can afford to pay $2,000 a month for a house. So there are those people out there too.
George Beasley, who just joined us, was talking about condos, and people. So I think there's a lot of people who move into condos as rentals, maybe as opposed to apartments. You had said that there's a lot of or I guess you had interviewed somebody who said there's a lot of private funds that are actually aggregating condos.
Yeah, I talked to a company. They are marketing Seattle condos in Asia. They have an article in this magazine that said they sent off to investors in Asia. They had to translate it into Chinese. The principal is planning a trip to China in April to tout Seattle condos, and they're selling Seattle as an investment. And
is that? I mean, the condos. What about single family? I mean, are they talking about that, or is that the low maintenance of a condo? Do you think?
I think when you're talking about this, it's a condo. These are people. They've got a bunch of money. They buy a bunch of condos. I didn't hear about this in single family. It doesn't mean it's not happening, but I think for them, condos are, and this firm specifically deals with condos, but I think also the investors, they know what they get in a condo. As George was saying earlier, you have you have dues that'll take care of the needs. It's low maintenance. It's low maintenance for your landlords too. So that's something they look for.
Yeah. Do you think that the people who are moving into condos choose condos over apartments for any reason, or is it just a lack thereof? I mean, they're pretty similar, right? You look at condos, you look at apartments. You'd mentioned there's 12,000 apartments coming on. So if you're buying a condo or want to buy a condo as an investment, I mean, shouldn't that scare you a little bit? 12,000 apartments under construction in the county?
If you're buying a condo with an eye to renting it out, that is something you should be thinking about, is that we have a whole bunch of apartment buildings under construction right now. We have no condo buildings under construction. However, condos do tend to be a little bit different. Generally, they're a little bit nicer, a little bit bigger. Particularly right now, there's been a trend in apartments to build apartments that maybe actually are a little bit nicer than they used to be, but are actually smaller than they used to be. So for people looking for square footage, they might not find it in an apartment. So there is, they can be a separate market, but if I were buying a condo, I'd certainly want one that I would feel pretty confident I could differentiate from an apartment in one of these buildings coming online.
Yeah, there is the demand, I think, for both. But if you're going to buy a condo, hey, I mean, that's the low maintenance side. You probably can't buy an entire apartment building. Well, maybe some of these
you're not going to invest in apartments, but yeah, you're not going to buy an apartment building. You could go out and buy a condo and be in that market, and it might seem to you to be more prudent than a single family house. Although you can always hire a property manager for a house too and pay them 10% of your rent a month.
Right. Do you think that people are renting also because they're afraid of lending guidelines?
I think people have heard that it's hard to get a mortgage. And it certainly is different. You talk to people who have gotten mortgages before and are getting them now, and there's more paperwork, more things to sign, more scrutiny, which is probably a good thing. I don't know to what extent people are choosing to be renters because they're afraid of the mortgage process. But I'm sure that's a factor. But I would expect it's a factor that's somewhere down below some of these other ones, like being afraid that if you buy a house, it's going to be worth less 6 months from now, being afraid you might lose your job. Being afraid that it's not going to turn out to be the kind of investment that houses traditionally have been.
Yeah. Again, we're here with Aubrey Cohen of the Seattle PI discussing his article that's going to be out in the next, I guess, 24 hours or so. And what about when somebody decides to go buy, whether it's a condo or an investment property? What are some of those big tips they need to do as they become a landlord for the first time or second time?
Well, I mean, I would say that it's a big decision and people should think about it carefully. You hear that all these people are doing it and you think, hey, maybe I should be doing that too. But first of all, you've got to be prepared to hold on to this for a while because you're not going to make your money back quickly if you're aiming to sell. And then the next thing is you got to think about what it's going to be a landlord. It can be a lot of work. So either you're going to be expecting phone calls in the middle of the night when a pipe bursts or a toilet backs up, or you're going to have to pay money to a property management company. You do have to keep in mind that the mortgage process is a little different than it used to be.
Which we get a kick out of. We get a kick out of the people who come in and go, I didn't have to give any documentation last time. And it doesn't trigger to them, really, geez, and nobody has any clue what transpired last time, right?
I think that was a good thing, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
you need that. They didn't need my bank statements last time, and it's amazing. It's kind of like people who think their house is the only house that didn't go down in their neighborhood. They think they're the only people who aren't going to have to get additional paperwork for their loan.
They love their house, so it must be great. Well, and I think another thing that might be surprising to people is to understand that for a nice home that's going to make a good rental home, there's competition out there. People still have this idea that it's a down market, and in some respects it is, but you're going to find other people out there trying to buy that house, and you have to be prepared to be patient. Some of the best bargains are in homes that are either in delinquency, or maybe there's a short sale where a lender's agreed to accept less than the amount that's owed, or maybe the house has gone through foreclosure. If you're going to buy one of those houses, you really have to be patient. I talked to somebody who put in an offer in November on a house, a short sale, and it just closed last month. So, it can be a big commitment of time and effort and money, but it can also pay off if you know what you're doing.
Well, going into it, I think from the financial side, also knowing your numbers, because it's easy to get caught up in the emotion of, we'll just pay $10,000 or $20,000 more. But understanding and working with somebody who understands what you're going to get for rent, what that's going to mean as far as your mortgage, and being cautious moving forward and not getting too caught up in the emotional part of, hey, let's go buy rental properties.
Yeah, and keeping in mind that, like all things, it's the market can change. Right now, it can look great, and as more inventory comes on of other things, maybe the rents won't stay where they are. Maybe the vacancy rates will go up. It'll be harder to get a tenant. So there's as with most investments, there's risk involved.
Right, and certainly it's a big commitment, and you have to be able to take that risk. Aubrey, thanks so much for joining us. You can get all of Aubrey's article at theseattlepi.com. Speaking of people who are paying more than list price for houses, a lot of that just has to do with the amount of inventory that's out there and the good houses that are on the market. Bob Pappy is going to join us next and discuss what's really going on with the houses for sale right now. My name is Ben Brash, and that was Aubrey Cohen. You're listening to Brashonomics.